Thank you, Bill, and thank you, members of the club, for having us. I'm Ed, November 2, X-Ray Delta Delta, and I am the community manager of the M17 Project. So not to confuse you guys with my fast talking and my New York City accent, I'm going to pass it over to Steve, and he's going to do the majority of the presentation tonight. So without further ado, KC1AWV.
I can't believe it. I hit the wrong button and it kicked me right out of the meeting. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Not this one. Oh, that one. Yeah. Okay. Hopefully everybody can hear me and everyone can see the screen.
Yep, we hear you.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, hi. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Bill, for inviting us onto your meeting here. My name is Steve. I'm part of the M17 project. My call sign is Kilo Charlie 1 Alpha Whiskey Victor, and I live here in New Hampshire, out on the seacoast. I'm actually currently in Newmarket. Used to live in Dover, but now I'm in Newmarket. What do I do for the M17 project? Let's see. Irritate half the team members and cause problems. but really, no, I do a lot of the systems administration and integrations of our system into other systems, and I do a lot of stuff with the lab. That's going to be really taking off this year. It's here at on my property, and it's the US side of the M17 labs, where we do a lot of testing and development and everything there. I also have with me, I dragged out of the woodwork here, Ed. He's also part of the M17 project, and I'll let him talk to you about himself there.
Well, Steve, I guess you kicked yourself off when I did my introduction. So,
oh, you already introduced yourself?
I introduced myself, and I told them I'm going to let you handle it so they don't get bored with my New York accent.
All right. Well, I guess that's what I get for missing out, or I guess I missed out because of the little foobar there. All right. So let's talk about M17. What is M17? So basically what the M17 project is now is a lot more than what it used to be. M17 really just started out as this idea of getting into digital voice and providing something to amateur radio that a lot of people could work on. You know, a lot of people have say in. You know, it's more of a you know, kind of well, it's open source, really. I mean, that's the whole thing about M17. We wanted to build an open source digital radio mode, but since, well, I don't know, we've been around for about 4 years now, and we've actually grown quite a bit. It's now more of a community that a lot of like-minded people and interested people are starting to get involved with, and we're just coming up with a whole bunch of stuff that is open source for amateur radio. And what this means is that everything that we develop, whether it be hardware, software, protocols, or anything like that, is free and open to use. So if you see, you know, the M17 specification, anybody can take that specification, implement it into what they want. So we've got different types of hardware, different types of software. We also have the protocol, and I'll go into those a little bit later here into the presentation. But why create something like this? And the reason for it is that there's digital voice modes that are out there right now. Of course, I mean, I'm sure that everybody's played around, or well, at least heard of DMR and D-Star and Fusion. P25 is in there, NXDN is in there, but all of these modes were either developed as a commercial kind of mode like DMR is, or with public service in mind like P25. And even Fusion, they're all pretty proprietary in their specifications and their vocoders, and even the hardware that you can use it on. DMR, not so much. DMR, I mean, you could buy a DMR radio from anybody nowadays. But like Fusion, in order to get on Fusion, you have to buy a Yaesu radio, or to get onto D-Star, it used to be that you could only just buy from ICOM, but you know, Kenwood made a radio not too long ago, but it seems like Kenwood's kind of getting out of the amateur radio game. I've heard rumors on both sides of that, so who knows. and like even the P25, the DMR stuff, the, you know, and the NXDN stuff, that stuff is really expensive, you know, because it's designed for commercial entities or public service where they have, you know, large amounts of money. But M17, well, we came along and we said there's got to be a better way for amateur radio. You know, I don't want to be spending, you know, thousands of dollars on a radio and be locked into a specific vendor. I want to be able to take a protocol and be able to implement it into just about anything that I want. And that's really what M17 started as, but now it's, you know, turned into a giant community of I'd say well over 2,000 people worldwide that have gotten involved, whether it be actually developing stuff or just following us along with for the ride. You know, it's a really great community of people to be in. You know, there's aspects of our community that I'll get into as well that are it's really for anybody. So that being said, what makes M17 different and what are kind of the features of the radio protocol. Now, I'll be talking a lot about the radio protocol because that's mainly what we're focused on. But the M17 protocol is, or at least M17 in general, is a fully open hardware and software project. The M17 protocol includes codec 2 as a vocoder. So if you've ever played with FreeDV, FreeDV also uses codec 2. So that's the voice vocoder that's in there. It is free and open source. It's actually the lesser GPL license. So it's able to be implemented into anything that needs a vocoder. We're worldwide. Everybody that is part of the M17 project is from all parts of the world. We've got people from Europe, we got people from Asia, we've got people from North and South America. I'm sure that we've got some people from, yeah, I think there was a couple of people from South Africa, so we got that continent covered. We also have people from Australia that are involved. The M17 protocol is a 9600 bit per second for FSK modulation, so similar to DMR, Fusion or C4FM, you know, and I don't think D-Star is the same rate, but and that uses a different modulation altogether. But if you're familiar with how C4FM operates or P25, it's the same idea. It's 9600 baud for FSK. And like I said, codec 2 is the vocoder, but there's two different rates that you can operate the vocoder at. So we have 3200 bits per second, which is full voice. So it's really high quality voice. And there's also a half rate mode of 16, well, I call it half rate mode, but it's 1600 bits per second, which allows for both voice and data to be transmitted at the same time. One of the things that Wojciech wanted to have me mention is that the M17 doesn't require any sort of call sign database for, you know, call sign lookups. So there's no like ID number like there is in DMR, where M17 actually uses your call sign as your identifier. So you don't need any special numbers or anything like that. You got your call sign, you're good to go. M17 also supports short messages. So like SMSs, DMR, I've seen that DMR can do that, but I don't know how many people actually use it. I know that there was a few videos that have been put out recently about POXAG paging and being able to page people on DMR, which is pretty neat. And I'm sure that that's something M17 will be able to support. There's also a file transfer mode. We call it packet mode, but it's really designed for file transfer or any sort of packet radio system that you want to use. So things like WinLink or replacing some of the FL Digi stuff or anything really that does packets. So even APRS can be done over M17. I like to stress that the encryption that is available in M17 is optional. A lot of people in the United States don't like it when you say that encryption's available. So we say that it's optional. There are countries that are out there that do allow encryption of the voice over digital. We do include that, but here in the United States, it's probably not going to be a big selling point, I suppose. We have reflectors. So if you're familiar with how D-Star works over the internet, where you have a repeater that's connected to a reflector, M17 does the same thing, albeit a little bit simpler. and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But M17 is also manufacturer agnostic. So anybody can take the M17 protocol and implement it into a piece of software or implement it into a piece of hardware and be able to interop with all the other pieces of hardware and software that are out there. So as long as it sticks with the M17 protocol specification, you know that you'll be able to operate with another M17 capable radio, software, etc. So M17 started out there in Poland, in Warsaw, by Wojciech Kaczmarski. His call sign's SP5WWP. He was part of the SP5KAB radio club that's in Warsaw. And while he was there, he was experimenting with DV modes, but he decided to create something different, which we call M17. And the reason for that, well, as I had said before, it's because there's no real open source protocol that's out there that is completely open source from beginning to end. So, trying to shoehorn DMR into, a different type of radio or something like that, it's very difficult. So he wanted to build a radio protocol from the ground up. And a lot of people ask us, what does M17 stand for? And, it's from, apparently, this is the story, is that it's derived from the address of that radio club in Warsaw. And I'm going to butcher this, but it's Mokotowska 17. So that's how we got the name M17. 4 years later, now we've got hardware, we've got software, we got people doing testing, publicity, maintenance of infrastructure. It's grown to something bigger than any of us that started back in 2019 could ever imagine it would have become. So it's really great to see how far we've come over the past 4 years. A little bit more history was in 2021, the ARRL awarded Wojciech with the Technical Innovation Award for creating M17. And here in the photo is our lovely Ed Wilson with the CEO of ARRL, David Minster, and A2AA. So he accepted the award for Wojciech on his behalf and sent it over to him. And that was a really awesome day for us at M17. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the development. I'm going to talk about things like the reflector, pieces of software and hardware that we're doing. Right now, MRFD is the reflector that we use. It's similar in operation to XLX. So if anybody has ever used an XLX reflector, MRFD is a derivative of that, and it was developed by Tom N7TAE. He's down in Arizona. If you've ever heard of OpenQuad, he's one of the members, one of the developers and members of OpenQuad. So he's got a lot of D-Star background. So you might see a lot of similarities between M17 and D-Star, at least for the internet linking side of it. M17, the MRFD reflector is actually IPv6 capable. It's the only internet linking system available to amateur radio that is capable of IPv6 that I am currently aware of. I don't think that any of the other reflectors that are out there are capable of doing that. I know that IPv6 is pretty, well, 2015, it's not that new, but it's definitely something that's going to be needed eventually. We're going to run out of IPv4 addresses. So we got on the bandwagon with IPv6. So that reflector is capable of transmitting and receiving data over IPv6. And again, no call sign database needed. Your call sign is your ID. So you don't need anything special. You don't need to sign up for any databases. You don't need to put in a number, and have that translated over to a call sign, all that other, it's just a headache for some of these other modes. So we got rid of that. We said, nope, your call sign is your ID. M17 is available on some repeaters and hotspots. So if you have like a Pi-Star hotspot that runs an MMDVM hotspot modem, that's M17 capable with a firmware update. MMDVM repeaters can run M17. And in order to get some of that taken care of and actually running, there's a Pi-Star update fork fork kind of system that W0CHP chip has created, and it runs very, very well. I know that picture might be a little bit tiny, but that's the dashboard from the repeater that we have here at the lab, the M17 lab, and it runs 24/7, and I haven't had any significant issues with it, so it works pretty well. There's internet clients available. So mVoice, which was another program that was developed by Tom N7TAE, that's available. That was the first one that was created. Shortly followed, these are kind of out of order, shortly followed by Droidstar. That was written by Doug 88DP. And M17 Client by Jonathan G4KLX. So the same guy that wrote the MMDVM software also created a client for M17 that's free and open source to use. Some of the hardware that we have that's out there is the Module 17, and that's a picture of it there on the left. That is a module that was developed by DB9 MAT and Wojciech. There's a handful of other people that have gotten involved with that as well, so that might be, I might need to start listing some more people in there. The OPI-17, which is a module similar to the Module 17, but it's designed to be on an Orange Pi, and that was developed by Pedro, M0IEI. I know that Ed's got one of those, and I'll have him show it off at the end of the slideshow. Don't worry, I'll try to get through the slideshow as quickly as possible, because I hate slideshows. But the TNC4 as well, that has just been released back in, I know that Rob had said that he wanted to release it back in January, but I think it was released back in February. As soon as those came available, I ordered 2 for myself, and it's a KISS TNC that can plug into the back of a radio, and it is M17 native in it, as well as your typical AFSK mode for 1200 baud packet. Radios that support M17 are radios that are flashed with the OpenRTX firmware. These are the DMR radios made by TYT or Redivis, the TYT MD380 and 390, the Redivis RT3 and RT3S. Those support OpenRTX. In order to get them working with M17, there's a hardware modification that needs to be done. It is very tedious work. I wasn't able to do it myself, but a friend of mine that's also part of the team, he was able to modify a couple of radios for me. And there's a few hardware bugs and software bugs that do need to be worked out, but that they're actively working on that, as well as developing the firmware for other radios. Something new that the M17 project is working on, and Wojciech specifically, is a product called OpenHT. If you can imagine a radio that is capable of every mode that you can think of, the OpenHT will be able to do it. Right now, it supports AM, FM, sideband, FreeDV, M17, and I'm sure that as we go along, there's going to be more modes available on this OpenHT. It's kind of the successor to the TR9 that was started to be developed very early on in the project, but now it's grown into something more. And with some of the capable hardware, the capable chips, the RF chips that are out there, we're able to get some better modes and fit everything into the radio that you could ever want, I suppose. So it's going to be a low power handheld device that will be capable of M17 as well as FreeDV and a bunch of analog modes, of course. SA8 by 8x8 modules. So these are like the 828 and the 818. These are modules that are typically installed into cheaper walkie-talkies. Like I think, don't quote me on this, but I think Baofeng might use the SA8x8 modules. But yeah, they're really designed as, cheap walkie-talkie modules that you can buy for like $5, off the shelf. And the ability for them to do M17 is very, very experimental. There's a few people that are part of the OpenRTX group that are working on that, trying to get OpenRTX into one of those modules and seeing if it can do M17. Early on, Rob WX90, he was able to get one of those after he lobotomized it to transmit M17, but they're trying to figure out a way to do it through software, and hopefully that'll bear some fruit pretty soon. SDR programs that support M17 are SDR++, OpenWebRX, RpiTX, and GNU Radio. So SDR, these are receive only. SDR++ and OpenWebRX, those are receive only. They have M17 as an available mode. RpiTX is a transmit only. I'll get into that in a little bit, but there's a GNU radio block that's currently working, I believe, and it's GRM17, so you can put that into GNU radio with your favorite SDR radio and be able to transmit and receive M17 right there. So how can you get involved now that you've heard all this wonderful stuff that I've waffled on about? So our community is obviously volunteer driven. Everybody that works on M17 is a volunteer and is, really in for it for the win and the betterment of amateur radio. We have all kinds of aspects that you can get involved with: software and hardware development, testing, publicity. There's a lot of people that are getting into the 3D CAD and 3D printing side of things because we're developing that OpenHT. So, we have people that are doing CAD designs for designing cases as well as for the Module 17. So there's that aspect, and obviously just operating M17. So if you want to, just have fun with the mode, just get involved by operating M17 and spreading the word to everybody that you can, bother, I suppose. How to get on the air via internet. I wish I had a screenshot of these, but I didn't have enough time. But mVoice is a Linux client. This is the one that was written by Tom N7TAE. It's a Linux client. It also runs on Raspberry Pi. It's just a piece of software similar to the way Droidstar works. So if you've used Droidstar, it runs on a computer. You plug in your headset, you put in your call sign, you put in the reflector that you want to connect to, and hit connect, and you're on the air. Well, you're on the internet. It's a way to get onto a reflector without needing a radio, so you can get onto M17 right now using mVoice. Excuse me. Droidstar is an Android app that's available on the Play Store. I had a screenshot of it earlier. It is the only client, or M17 is the only mode on Droidstar that is native. So that means you don't need any special hardware or special software, or I'll say gray area software to run, because M17 uses a free and open source vocoder. We can actually have that implemented into anything without needing anything special. So you don't need a special dongle from DVSI. You don't need a licensed piece of software ripped off of another radio in order to run the vocoder. You can also run Droidstar on Linux by compiling the source from code, or compiling the code from source. It was available on iOS. The test flight beta, just kind of, it went the way of the dodo. It worked, but it's expensive to develop for Apple, because you need to get a whole bunch of stuff, and it's not a very viable platform for it to be developed as far as an open source and free program to be run on Apple. So it was available, but I believe that Doug N88DP is working on getting that available for people that are on iOS. There is an obscure Windows build that's available. I don't think it's been updated in a very long time, but you can compile Droidstar for Windows and get the same experience as you would on Linux or your Android device. Cross modes are available. So as a matter of fact, if you get onto Echolink or All-Star, M17 is available on many reflectors and nodes and stuff on those two modes. But I know of the ones that I run, KC1AWV-R on Echolink will connect you to the M17 reflector that's run by the M17 project, and you can talk with the team and everything. Same with All-Star. So you can actually cross-mode analog into M17 without any additional hardware, software, licensing, anything that has to involve any sort of gray area. DMR can be cross-moded into M17 using a special dongle. I have one here. This one is called the Thumb DV3000. Made by Northwest Digital Radio. Those are Ambi chips that are USB plug-in devices that you get the Ambi vocoder over serial. Same with M17 to ISF, so you can cross-mode M17 into Fusion. And I know that DV Switch, using their analog reflector software, you can get onto M17 as well without needing any special extra hardware or software. Getting on the air with RF, you can use M17 over RF right now. Like I said before, MMDVM hotspots and modems can be upgraded to run M17 as long as you are running MMDVM firmware version 1.6.0 or greater. The only issue with that is if you run a stock Pi-Star image, you will need to upgrade the MMDVM host software as well as M17 gateway in order to actually be able to connect with the modem and the internet side of things. But with that in mind, I had made mention about Chip's WPSD image, which has everything up to date. I don't think that Andy Cowley, who's the developer of Pi-Star, is going to be developing Pi-Star any further. So that's why Chip has decided to create his own fork of it. And he's calling it right now WPSD. So it has all the updated software. It has a brand new dashboard that looks pretty awesome compared to the old one. And also runs M17 without any with all the updates and everything. So that's probably going to be the easiest way for people with hotspots and repeaters that are running MMDVM is using the WPSD image. M17 Client by Jonathan, G4KLX. This is similar to mVoice, but it uses an existing MMDVM modem or a hotspot board to transmit M17. So if you're using an MMDVM modem, you'll need a 9600 baud capable radio in order to transmit. But if you have a hotspot board, you can transmit using that and the M17 client. Similar to mVoice, you use a headset or speakers and microphone to get the audio in and out, and then the software does all the M17 encoding and decoding for you. You have to compile it yourself. There is no binaries available, but the documentation is also kind of lacking right now. So if you know of anybody that can write documentation on how to compile some Linux software and get things into the right places, let us know, because we would love to have that documentation written for that client, because it's a really good piece of software. Again, the TNC4 by Mobilelink, that was released recently. This is a KISS modem, so M17 is built in as a RF mode on the TNC4, and any piece of KISS software will be able to run with M17 using the TNC4. So things like XAPRS, APRS ISCE, and a whole bunch of other letters for Windows. So you can do APRS with the TNC4 and M17. G8BBQ if you're into BBSs. Let's see. WinLink I had mentioned earlier. You can use a packet TNC with WinLink. Yeah, basically any piece of software that's KISS capable can run M17 as its physical interface with the TNC4. There's also an M17 HT Android app, which turns your TNC4 and radio into a well, that doesn't really transform the TNC4. I'm sorry. It does. It turns your Android phone into an HT. So using over USB is more reliable, but technically it should be able to be done over Bluetooth as well. But it will turn your Android device into an HT using the TNC4 and a radio. The only caveat is that it must be a 9600 baud capable radio. There are plenty of them out there. I have one here on the desk. It's an FTM 6000, works great. I've heard a lot of good responses from other people saying that a lot of the ASU radios will work very well with it. I don't have many ICOM radios to test with, but I'm sure that it probably should work. Kenwood radios, those work as well. Motorola, like the GM300 and those series of radios, those will work as well. Partial receive only, I had spoken about before, the SDR++ and OpenWebRX. Those are software-defined radio receiver softwares, which both have M17 capability. RpiTX, this is that transmit-only software for the Raspberry Pi. You can transmit baseband M17 using a GPIO pin and a short piece of wire. One of the videos that we have on our channel is me actually doing that with, was I using SDR++ or was I using SDR Angel? I think I might have been doing SDR Angel on that one. Yeah, you can transmit M17 baseband if it's pre-recorded using RpiTX. And the TX and RX ones, OpenRTX, of course, both transmit and receive work with modifications to the specific radios that I had mentioned. All the information for that is right there on their site. Module 17, which is that smart mic, excuse me, that was developed by DB9 MAT. There's going to be a new version of that coming out shortly, and once we have that available, we'll make an announcement on Twitter. But we're basically replacing some parts that have become unobtainium, mostly the digipots that we're using for the transmit and receive audio. Those have gone away, so I think that we're going to be using just multi-turn regular pots for that. But yeah, there's going to be a new version of M17 soon. I'm sorry, Module 17 soon. OPI M17, which I'll have. I think I'd said that. I think I'd has one. You have one available?
I do have one. Just a correction there. The OPI M17 is a M17 client-based piece of hardware.
Okay. Yeah. So that's going back on that M17 client by Jonathan G4KLX. OPI M17 is another capable M17 modem that will transmit and receive M17 using Jonathan's M17 client. And another interesting project that came out recently was the M17 Analog Gateway, which was developed by, I believe they were the college students over there in Thailand that got involved with the M17 project and said, how do we get an analog radio to talk to M17? And they have a piece of software and some hardware designs that will allow you to get, even a cheap analog radio to work with M17. And we also have M17 Tools. Wojciech asked me to add this in. M17 Tools is a piece of software that was derived from M17 CXXD mod that was written by WX90, Rob. He came up with the first, command line version of M17, and now Paulo, what's his call sign? PU4THZ. I believe it's PU4THZ. That sounds right to me.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. He developed M17 Tools, which is a derivative of Rob software that runs on Windows. It also runs on Linux, of course, because it's source code that you can compile. But we've been testing it with the DigiRig and plugging that into the back of a radio. And I have a DigiRig and that FTM 6000, and I'm able to transmit M17 beautifully with it. They're working on the RX side of it. Right now it's just transmit. But we're expecting the receive side to be completed soon. Going into some of the grants and sponsors and people that are working with us, back in 2021, the ARDC granted us $250,000 for the development and research into M17 as a digital voice mode. They've been an incredible organization to work with. We wouldn't be here without that initial grant to get the hardware, to get the software, and build a lab in order to actually bring M17 into life. We wouldn't be able to do it with just our own money. So ARDC gladly donated us some money. And we received a second donation in December of 2022 that went to the Deutsche Amateur Radio Club over in Germany for 228,900 for the same thing, M17 development, but with the people that are over in Europe, to make things a little bit easier for them in Europe to be able to get the things that they need. OCF is the M17's fiscal sponsor. So this means that we have a 501c3 organization that is taking care of all of our books, taking care of taxes and all that other stuff for us. Since M17 is not a 501c3 charitable organization, we have Open Collective as our fiscal sponsor for that. All the donations that we receive for M17 are collected through Open Collective, and we're able to buy the hardware, buy the software, buy the tools that we need in order to keep M17 running. We can also provide reimbursement for people that are doing things for M17 out of their own pocket if they need, the extra money to kind of, take M17 to that next level. We are able to, reimburse people through Open Collective, which is really awesome. If you have any sort of organization that wants to get a fiscal sponsor, I highly recommend Open Collective myself. Some of the people that we work with are OpenRTX. Obviously, they're developing firmware for multiple radios that also includes M17 support. Great group of guys that are out there working on that. I suggest taking a look at what they're doing, and if you can get involved, go ahead. Edis Research has provided us with some hardware for research and development. So there's a handful of USRP radios here at the lab, as well as in Europe, that are used for transmitting and receiving M17 over RF. And Zum Radio, who develops the Zum Spot hotspots. You might have seen it like HRO. They've donated us a whole bunch of hotspot and modem boards that we can use in order to develop M17 with. So I know that there's a couple of repeaters that are out there that are currently running the Zum Spot, or I'm sorry, the Zum modem RPi modem that sits on top and then plugs into a pair of radios to turn into a repeater. I have a couple of those here that have already been flashed, so I can take the ones that I have here and put them in place of the ones that are currently existing out there to get them up onto M17 as quickly as possible. So if you have a repeater or something in the area that you want to see get M17 added as a mode onto, just let me know, and we can try and make that happen. And there we go. I hope I haven't bored anyone to tears yet. I know that Ed's usually falling asleep by this time. But all of our links are there. The M17 project is m17project.org. Not all of it, but a lot of our information is available there on the website. We're constantly adding things to it. Keep an eye out for anything that's new there. OpenRTX, who's the people that are developing that firmware, theirs is openrtx.org. Our Open Collective link is right there. It's opencollective.com/M17 project. If you want to talk with us on M17, we have a weekly net on Fridays at 1700 UTC, which is about lunchtime here on the East Coast. I think it's 1 p.m. Now that we're in summertime. So, you can join us on Reflector M17 Module C. And we have Discord and Matrix links there as well. So if you want to actually get involved and chat with us, or even just hang out with the group, hop onto Discord, hop onto Matrix. That's where all of our day-to-day operations stuff goes on. So as we're developing and as we're hacking all these things together, that's where we're at. And we're all keeping in contact through Discord. So now my voice is starting to go away, so I'm gonna let Ed finish off for me. Tell me if I missed anything.
No, I think other than the fact that we will be at Nearfest in 2 weeks, I guess 2 weeks from today, we'll be up there. So I'm sure most of you guys and gals will be there. Stop by and see us. I'm not sure what building we're in. I think we're in
it's
if
concessions.
It's the same building as last year.
Yeah, it's the same. It should be the same building as last
So I
year.
guess
That's where
it's
they
next-
usually put us.
It's next to the forum buildings. We're there. I just have a couple of things I wanted to show off. For as little as $5, and if you can get
Yeah,
in your hands,
let me stop sharing so that you can show off.
can you pin me? Can I pin me?
I think Bill has to do that.
Bill, can you?
You'll be focused when you're talking, Ed. So go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to, for as little as $5, you can use a Raspberry Pi Zero with a piece of antenna wire on it, and you can, like Steve said earlier, you can use RpiTX to transmit M17 baseband. So very minimal investment. If it's something you think you might be interested with, this is a good way to start, especially if you're savvy in Linux, which I'm really not, and Steve yells at me all the time. But that's a good starting point. I wanted to show off something else, which Steve had said earlier, and this is a M5 stack, and this is running the software that the group of college kids who are focused on MCOM kind of came up with in Thailand. And just a little microphone and a $35 STM32 board with a built-in display. You can go from analog into our M17 digital network. So just a cool little kitschy device. And again, most of this stuff is experimental right now, but that's what ham radio is all about. It's all about experimenting. Steven mentioned earlier the OPI Zero, which I don't have a micro USB plug to plug it in and show it off right now. But basically, this was developed by a ham over in England. And it's a board that sits on top of an Orange Pi Zero. And Orange Pi Zeros are a lot easier to come by these days than the Raspberry Pi Zeros. This particular board takes a Kenwood microphone, and it runs that M17 client. And like Steve had mentioned earlier, if anybody out there is a technical writer, please reach out to us. And we would love some help with getting some of our documentation done for the M17 client program. And I'm sure we can reimburse you for your time and efforts. I think that's about all that I have. Some things that Steve mentioned earlier, the Zoom spots. This is the USB Zoom stick. Hooks into your USB port. Steve and I, we've been experimenting with these at some of the Hamfest and on some of the bigger YouTube channels. We take an OTG cable, plug it into the bottom of a Android-based phone, running Droidstar, and we use this for M17 over RF. This is the RF deck right here, and granted, it's only probably a tenth of a watt or something ridiculous like that. But again, it's a fun experiment to play around with M17. That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Anyone have any questions for either Steve and or Ed? I have one. There is a question. I'll get to you in a second, Gene. There is one thing. I know that Ed mentioned it. Sorry, Steve mentioned it near the end of the presentation, but I want to sort of reiterate SDR Angel. Very, very fun to play with. In fact, I've been thinking about doing a talk with all the different ham radio things you can actually do with SDR Angel aside M17, but it's also a nice, easy way to both transmit and receive M17.
I have somebody for you to reach out to who's a big fan of SDR Angel, and he will talk your ear off about it.
Excellent. Very good. I'll hit you up on Discord at some point.
All right.
And the only I have a question for Steve before I get to Gene's question, and that is I know that there have been several New Hampshire / New England M17 meetups. I don't know if there was any that are being planned near Fest or anything like that.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're going, well, obviously M17 will be at near Fest. We'll have a table there in the concessions area. That's why they usually put the nonprofits and everything. They put us in the back corner and don't think about us too much. But yeah, we'll have a table there. I'm going to have a whole bunch of things to show off. So I will have all the software that we've talked about. So mVoice, M17 client, Droidstar, we'll have those there. I'll have a hotspot. I'll also have this neat little portable repeater that I built that will be available. And I've already forgotten what Bill's question was because I wanted to talk about that.
A meetup.
Oh yes, so yes, we'll be there and we will meet up. So we've been really toying with the idea of creating an M17 amateur radio club. I want it to be a worldwide thing, but right now it seems to be pretty New Hampshire focused. I want it to grow to be New England wide, and then eventually, US wide, and then, worldwide. I want it to be.
Are we gonna skip New York? Is it just gonna be a New England thing?
Well, I kind of consider New York part of New England.
I don't know about that. I think the Yankees might disagree with that. So, Bill, were you talking about the after, like, dinner meetup or lunch meetup that we normally have?
Yeah, well, like I know there's been a couple of things where they've met up with, like, Steve and Mike and some folks, getting together and talking M17 type of thing.
So
and myself, I've been there.
Was it last year that we went to 99, or was that the year before?
It was late last year. There was the 99. There was the backyard brewery once.
Oh yeah, that was really good. But yeah, we have meetups. We're trying to do them monthly. So the meeting for April will be at Nearfest, and we will most likely go somewhere for dinner after the event. So I think there's a day on, I think it's Sunday. I think that they close at 2, but
Saturday.
Saturday.
It's just Friday and Saturday.
Oh, is it? Why did I think that it was 3 days?
Yeah.
I might be thinking hamcation. But yeah, usually on that Friday night, we'll try and get together. But if it doesn't work out for Friday, then we'll usually do the Saturday. And, we'll pick a restaurant and sit down and talk M17 and, meet new people and say hi to the old ones and all kinds of cool stuff. So yeah, swing by our table. We'll probably have the plans, ironed out by the time Nearfest starts.
There you go. And we have a question here. Go ahead.
Can the M17 be used on HF? Have you got any experience with that? And are there any advantages of using it comparing to a traditional single sideband? The reason I'm asking is that about 10 years ago, ARRL was trying to introduce digital communications, voice communications on HF. And they miserably failed for 2 main reasons. First of all, their equipment was pretty expensive. The modem was about $500, give or take, so people just didn't want to buy those. And the other reason is that this digital communications on HF did not provide any advantages comparing to traditional analog. That's the biggest difference with the FT8, which actually increased the efficiency of communications tenfold and invited millions of new hams to our hobby. So my question is, if it is possible to introduce M17 on HF and show it that it would improve the capability of the connections in this very unstable, difficult to communicate bands, and is there any future in this area?
So I'll answer this question in 2 parts. Can you do M17 on HF? Well, yes, you can, but should you? No, because M17 is a mode that has a symbol rate that is much higher than what is available to amateur radio on HF. I think the symbol rate is 300 on HF. M17 is 4,800, so it's I can't even do the math. What is that? 22 times the rate that's available on HF. So I'm going to say M17 is a VHF and up protocol, so basically 6 meters and up. I would not try to use M17 on HF. Oh, and the other reason too is that I seem to have left out this piece of information, is that M17 has a channel bandwidth of 9 kilohertz. So it's definitely also not just too fast for HF, but it's also too wide. However, with that being said, this is the second part. FreeDV is essentially the same thing on HF as M17. So FreeDV uses the same vocoder, codec 2, on HF, There are hardware devices available for FreeDV on HF, but there's also software, of course. So you can download the free software, plug your computer into your HF rig, and communicate via digital voice over HF. And actually, this weekend is the FreeDV activity day weekend. So starting at 8 a.m. Zulu is the start of the FreeDV activity day. So the information for that is, well, right now it's currently locked into Discord, but if anybody's interested, I can go ahead and copy and paste that information into the Zoom so that if you're interested, you can get involved with FreeDV. It's the same idea as M17, just without the reflectors. It's more designed for HF, so it's definitely more efficient than what M17 would be for HF. I hope that answers the question.
And this is one of the devices that Steve was mentioning. This is the SM1000, which is an interface for your HF radio to get onto FreeDV. But like Steve said, there's other alternatives. You can use a headset and your computer. And just on a side note, in reference to FreeDV, our founder SP5WWP is part of the new FreeDV team and helping to modify the codec to not only to benefit FreeDV but to eventually benefit M17 as well. And on a side note, the FreeDV group, they were just granted a over $400,000 grant from ARDC to further the development of FreeDV. So we like to say that they're doing a great job down on HF, and we're handling VHF, UHF, and above. So
very good. Do we have any other questions for either Ed and or Steve? As they both mentioned, actually, Ed, are you coming up for Nearfest?
I am. I will be up Thursday, and I'm leaving Sunday evening.
I'm very excited about that.
Yes, I know I bumped into you at Nearfest and other things. You guys seem to be at any larger New England event. So if you think of any other questions, Steve, Ed, and others will be at the M17 booth at Nearfest. So and with some show and tell. I suppose I'll put my neck out there and say that I've done M17 a whole variety of ways, including the Module 17 board with the FTM 6000. I have a modified MD380. Modified hotspots, modified all sorts of stuff. So if anyone in the club ever has any M17 questions, feel free to bounce them off me. And if I don't know the answer, I know where to find Steve. And we can,
I'm not hard to find.
No, you're not. But we can probably help you out there. But it is an exciting and experimental mode. It is 100% open source, which is appealing. And I'd like to, if there's no further questions, thank both Steve and Ed for the presentation tonight.
Well, thank you, Bill, for having us. It was a pleasure. And
thank you very much.
I hope to hop into some of your meetings as we make progress.
Excellent. Very good. Yeah, we'll certainly keep in touch. And yeah, excellent. And I'll certainly see you guys at Nearfest. I'm sure some of the club members will stop by and say hi as well.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. So again, thank you, Steve and Ed. And with that, I'm actually going to conclude the meeting for this evening, and we'll see you all next month.